Hello, everybody, and welcome to Virtual Bourbon. My name is Steve Akley. We have a fun event tonight. We have not only our flagship whiskey event, we have the all-star edition of our flagship whiskey event, where we take, this is all individuals that participated in year two, and then we take the best of those as voted upon by you, the attendees of these events. Those are the people that voted. I had no say in it. It just ends up being the highest scoring ones of the year. So after all 6 events, and all the distilleries, 48 distilleries throughout the course of a year, we vote on them, and you guys get to vote for your favorites. And ultimately, that's what turns into these events here. We do 3 in 1 month, and it is in October is our all-star month. So we've got events coming up the next 2 Mondays as well, featuring the individuals voted for by you as the favorites of the previous year. So very cool stuff. So before we get started, I like to kind of go through and introduce our individual presenters, and then we'll come back and interview them individually and go through and a tasting of their products. So first up is Andy Lang, the founder and distiller of Leatherwood Distillery in Pleasant View, Tennessee. Hey, Andy, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you've got a treat for us today because you shared your whiskey on the event this past year. You're sharing your brandy with us this evening, right, for the All-Star event.
Yes, sir.
All right, should be fun. Can't wait to try that. Talk to you a little bit about how you came up with the recipe and all that kind of stuff. We'll get to that in just a few. The next person on the list is Mr. Adams Stomp, the co-founder and distiller in Columbia, Illinois of Stumpy Spirits. Hey, Adam, how you doing, buddy?
I'm lovely, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing lovely as well. So it's always fun speaking to you. And we've got a really great whiskey that we're going to be sharing today. And hopefully some have not tried it here. And those that had, I think, will enjoy revisiting a great whiskey, one of the all-time favorites of mine personally. And I think just about anybody that's tried it. So it should be good stuff.
Well, appreciate that. And Justine, I owe you a couple bottles for sure.
Not too shabby. Yeah, Justine, she definitely saved the day on this one. So that's really cool stuff. I am going to be filling in for Royce Neely. So Royce has been under the weather, and he called me today and said he couldn't go. I saw Royce this weekend. He's been telling me he's been sick for like 2 weeks. And he had a little bit of a rally. He said he was feeling a little bit better Saturday at the event I saw him at, but he said he's regressed since then. So he is not doing real well right now. So he is taking the evening off. So I'll fill in. I certainly know the Stumpy story as good as any of them out there, can answer any questions you've got for about them. And they continue to do great things and have a lot of cool things going on. And the place just gets, I was just there this a couple times over the last couple of weeks, and it just, every time I go, there's new stuff there. And that's certainly been the case once again. So if you haven't been to Stumpy's in the last 6 months, it's totally different. So as always. And our last presenter for today will be Mike Root, owner distiller for Sky Distillery out of Longmont, Colorado. Mike is scheduled to be on. He's not here right now, so we don't know if that means he's not going to be here or he just happens to be running a little late. Hasn't responded to my text yet, so if not, we'll fill in and just taste the whiskey. I don't know Mike's story as well as some others. I'll share what I do know, and we'll do the best that we can with that one, and we'll see. But hopefully he will show up. I've got Justine keeping an eye out for him. So there you go. Evan Van Squake said you said Stumpy's ABV, but meant Neely. What does that mean? Yeah. Go ahead, Evan. Open up your mic. What did I say wrong?
No, you just said Stumpy's. You're filling in for Neely.
I'm filling in for Neely. Correct. Yes, not for If I said Stumpy's, that was wrong. Though I could fill in for Stumpy's too, and then he could do Neely if we want to.
Yeah, go for it. I'll grade you.
Real twist here. yeah. So all right. So now Mr. Bill said the same thing. So he's a little late though. Mr. Bill was slower on the draw. All right.
Typing.
Yeah, he was typing, a slower typer. So Kevin Majors has joined us. Hey, buddy. All right, with that, I'd like to introduce again Andy Lang, again, founder and distiller of Leatherwood Distillery, Pleasant View, Tennessee. Opened up a new location as well. We'll ask him about that. And he's going to be sharing with us their grape brandy. Should be fun stuff. Andy, how's it going, man?
Going great.
That's good. That's good. We get a lot of repeat individuals on the All-Star events. They have voted you as one of their favorite presenters of the year, but we do get some new people as well. So I'm looking out like a Kyle Neely and some others that haven't attended these events before, so they don't necessarily know your history and those type of things. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your background, tell us a little bit about your company and how it got started.
All right. So I retired from the Army in 2017, which is when I opened Leatherwood Distillery. Prior to that, I was a Green Beret for 19 years, and then I was in the infantry for about 7 years before that. I started out with this project not knowing I was going to open a distillery, just making beer and wine for friends. And then I realized I don't drink beer and wine, and I was spending all that money on whiskey. So I had to figure out how to build a still and make it myself. So that's kind of how I got started into it. You guys tried I think some of you have tried our sweet feed whiskey, corn, wheat, rolled oats, and dried molasses. That was one of the things I made over in Afghanistan a couple times. Or maybe not, sometimes it happens.
Allegedly, right. Yeah.
So yeah, 2017, I was getting ready to retire, and some buddies of mine who've been drinking my home brew for years came up to me and said, "Hey man, why don't we try this for real?" I was like, I don't think you can just get a distillery license. Well, evidently anyone can, because I got one.
So you decide to do this, and again, it's something that you had done kind of as a hobby, but your buddies in the Army liked what you were doing, so you knew that you had some skill at this, right? And but then opening a distillery is a totally different thing. How do you get all that together? How do you pull all the things that you have to do to open up a legal distillery?
I was lucky enough down the road here from my house. We have MB Roland and Old Glory Distillery distilleries, and they're both of them are great guys. So I just kind of reached out to them, and they really just kind of walked me through everything. Helped me with my licensing portions, and like the most important thing for me was that they taught me was the process, where you start in order to get to the end. And if you don't do it in order, it doesn't work, so they kind of just guided me along that path and helped me get it all going. And I actually got my license within 6 months, and I thought it was going to take about a year or 2 years. So I was definitely not ready.
It went quicker than you thought, huh? So
yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So, and what kind of stuff would you distill, in the military before you got it? Was it whiskey? Was it things like brandy? Or what else? What would you do?
Yeah. So we started out with rum, really, just a sugar, so we're just using regular table sugar, and melting it down, adding some yeast to it, and letting it ferment, and then run it through a small still.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then adding flavors afterwards, which we would call, our moonshine.
Right. And how are you able to, transport this thing around and stuff like that? The still, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, the still was actually on our pallet of equipment. It was just labeled as a water purification.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah. And so once you get this, again, being a whatever you want to call it, a home distiller or a hobby distiller, you have to have, recipes and things like that. How did you refine the recipes? Was it all trial and error? Did you read books, watch internet videos? How do you come up with what you are now making today?
I just trial and error. I kept that small still. So even when we bought our 175 gallon column, it's kind of a pot still column put together. Even when we had that, I was still using my 15 gallon beer keg still that I, built myself. And I would practice recipes on that first, see how it turned out. And when it came to like the bourbon and the rye, I made a whole bunch of different recipes and put them in little 5 gallon barrels.
Mm-hmm.
And then added wood chips, just to make it, kind of fake age really fast to get an idea of what the flavor was going to be. And they were pretty right on. Little differences between, the two to 2.5 year really aging it in a big barrel versus fake aging it with wood chips and a small barrel. There were little differences. But other than that, I just kept track of what I was doing. And I'll tell you, one of the hardest part of the licensing was that first recipe that I had to submit. That and the first label. I mean, that took me forever. It only took me 6 months to get a license, but it took me another 6 months to get my first label approved.
Really? Wow. Yeah. It's tough because there's all these rules and I don't know. I don't know if it's as consistent as you'd like to think it is versus who's checking your label at the time too. So there's some of that goes in there.
A lot of roulette.
Yeah. So you retire from the military 2017. You decide you're going to open a distillery. When are you up and distilling? So it takes some time to build out, of course, and all that. But when are we talking about the stills are running at your place that you have?
Yeah. So what I did was once I got my license, I already had the place rented out that we're going to do. So the first thing I did was set up my still. And originally I just, we took the column off and used the pod as our mash cooker. So 1 week we would make all of our mash, and then the next week we would put it all back, the still back together, and start running the first batch that we made from the week prior.
Right.
And so while I was building, decorating, all that kind of stuff, I was already starting to make batches. So that I could have stuff bottled and on the shelf when we opened, which we just started out with our rums, our flavored moonshines, and agave spirit. And that was about it when we first opened for almost a year.
Mm-hmm. So for those that haven't been there, and there is a contingent of individuals that are here on this call that have been there because we had a group come down and hang out with you for a day. But for those that haven't been there, explain to them what it's like visiting your distillery.
So it'll probably be the smallest distillery you ever go to. In fact, the tasting room is more like a bar in the evenings. Because we do all kinds of cocktails. We also have some beer and food. We do live music and all that on the tasting room side. And then in the back, we have about 75 barrels aging. Most of them 53 gallons. We got a few 25 gallons left. And then we've also got a few 25-gallon beer rums aging. And it's just a little small place with a couple garage doors, and that's about it.
Yeah. But it's more than that, though. I mean, you say it very humbly, but I mean, there's like a museum of your military career in there too, which is incredibly fascinating if you're into that sort of thing. There's a lot of cool stuff there, isn't there?
True, there is. Pretty much everything I've saved up over the 20 some years I was in is hanging on the walls in there. Couple guns hanging on the wall that might not have come back from Afghanistan or Iraq. Probably the most flags in any one building around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you just opened up a new facility too. Tell us about that one, because I don't know if anybody here has been to that location. So tell us a little bit about that one and what you have going on there.
So that's right. It's actually only about 15 minutes away, but it's down in Clarksville, which is where Fort Campbell is. It's a much bigger place, newer building. It's a 5,000 square foot building. We've got half of it for production. We went from a 175 gallon still to a 450 gallon still and mash cooker. We've got 5 stainless steel fermenters, and then there's a separate room where we have a big barrel rack on the wall, just like the one in Pleasant View, just a little bit bigger. And the tasting room has the same exact feel as Pleasant View. So you could almost be in one or the other and feel like it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the brandy that we're going to be getting ready to taste here in just a second. Tell us what's going on with this. How you came up with this recipe and what we should expect as we start tasting it.
So the recipe was pretty easy. Beach Haven Vineyard, which is right down the road from our distillery. I'm pretty good friends with one of the brewers over there. He called me, said they had 1,100 gallons of wine that didn't quite make their cut to bottle. I asked if I wanted it, and I said, yeah, sure, bring it over. I've never made brandy before, but I've wanted to. So I went and picked it up, and it took us about 2.5 weeks of running the still every day to get through all 1,100 gallons. And luckily we did a little research on distilling wine. So there's a lot of sulfur in wine that's fermented. And one of the first things you have to do that I had no idea is add a whole bunch of hydrogen peroxide.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, you basically are going to get a brandy that tastes like sulfur, and the sulfur smell is just going to infect the whole building. But the folks over at Beach Haven helped me do the research and came up with some formulas of how much I needed to add. We added it and never had any problem with the sulfur. I wish I could tell you the type of grape it is, but I can't remember.
Right.
So we distilled it, and then we put it in some of our snake eater bourbon barrels.
Okay.
So you really get a lot. To me, I get a lot more bourbon flavor than I do brandy. I think you'll get two separate notes. One will be like the bourbon and the oak, and then you'll also get just a tiny bit of grape in there. So it's got that brandy nose, but then when you taste it, you're going to get a lot of that bourbon flavor from the barrel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, kind of a little bit of grape, like you said, but kind of also buttery a little bit.
Yeah. And, to actually call it a grape brandy, it's got to be in a barrel 2 years. It's kind of like a straight whiskey or straight bourbon. So we emptied one barrel so far. We still have 2 or 3 left. I think we have 2 left. And we're going to try and let them sit till about 4 years.
Yeah.
Testing it along the way, make sure it doesn't get a little too over oaked, or we'll see.
Mm-hmm. All right, here you go. Raisins, vanilla, butter, honey on the nose. Tricked them that it was a brandy. Big League Chew, grape Big League Chew, Sally said, which is great.
Yeah.
Cool. Mildly sweet grape, apricot, caramel, vanilla, cedar. More alcohol than expected for 80 proof. Bubblicious. Cedar on the nose. Okay, yeah, some good nosing notes there. Let's try this first one of the night. Cheers, gang.
Enjoy. It does make a pretty awesome old fashioned, which I didn't really know was a thing, even though I grew up outside of Chicago, so close to Wisconsin. Evidently, brandy old fashions are huge in Wisconsin.
Really? That's where they're big at. The Ewalds are saying yes, right? They're near Wisconsin. Very good. Getting you definitely get the barrel influence here. What's surprising, Andy, is the amount of barrel influence. It does take a high on the whiskey notes, and it also has a pretty long warm finish for, again, 80 proof.
That's
good.
It stays around for a little bit.
Yeah. What else? What are you guys getting on it? Starts thin and cooling, then warms instantly and clings. That's interesting. Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the label, I'll hold that up for you.
Oh, yeah. Beach
It's
Haven.
got the logo in the middle. Got the nice grape bunches. And we just named it Beach Haven for the vineyard that gave us the wine.
Very cool. Yeah, fellow distiller Adams Stomp says incredible how much barrel you get on this. Yeah, yeah, it's solid. Very good, very enjoyable, Andy. As always, it's great talking to you, and we will have you at the end answering questions and things like that with the group. Okay, please stick around.
Great. Thank you.
The Whiskey Drinkers Brandy. I agree. Good stuff. All right. Before we bring in Mr. Adam Stumpf, I do want to say hello to Mike from Copper Sky. Mike Root is here now. Hey, Mike, how you doing, man?
Hey, brother, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good as well. So we will be talking to you. You are slated. You're batting cleanup tonight, so you'll be fourth. But we do like to introduce everybody at the top. So wanted to go ahead and get you introduced to the audience real quick. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you in just a little bit here. All right, next up is going to be Mr. Adam Stumpf, a good friend of mine and a guy that I've known from the beginning of his distillery. I remember I didn't hear anything about it. I was driving Route 3 where he's off of right there one day, and I see the sign, just like a garage sale type of sign, distillery. So I go back there and check it out, and yeah, it was just. Him and his wife, and that's it. Laura and Adam, and that's it. They were the employees, and just a small little place. But it was one of those things. It's one of those moments where you can meet someone and you can see the passion, you can see they're on the right track, and you know that they're going to be good. And lo and behold, my spidey senses were right that day. So, Adam, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Steve. I appreciate. I did not know the garage sale sign.
Oh yeah,
so I didn't know that's how you first heard about us.
Yeah, you guys used to have you do the garage sale type of sign.
Oh, we made a lap around Route 3 and 158 every day when we opened and closed to put the signs out and take them down so people do the damn things.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's terrible.
Yeah, that's how I first got introduced to you. So yeah. So yeah, Amy was like, "Pull over here. We gotta check this out." So that was the first time I went. And then we would continue to go from time to time, and then yeah, when I started doing this bourbon stuff, then I finally reached out, and you knew who I was at that point already. And even though I was just a customer, you'd followed the things that I was doing, Bourbon Zeppelin and all that kind of stuff. So it was cool. We'll get to know you, and it's been great. So tell us a little bit about your history. Again, I think most people know, your story, but just go ahead and give a quick, version of how you got going with this.
Sure. So we are basically a farm first and distillery second. We're one of the few single source distilleries in the country. So we grow every kernel of grain that we turn into booze, corn, wheat, barley, and rye. And I guess for me, my journey started in school. I went to school in South Central Missouri at a school that was, I think at that point, probably, I don't know, mid 90s percent male, and almost everybody was an engineer. So there was not a whole lot to do. We did school and we drank, and that was pretty well it. But that's where I learned how to make alcohol. Eventually, really got into beer down there, and after school went to work for Anheuser-Busch. So got a strong foundation for turning grain into alcohol. While I was at AB, there's kind of this entrepreneurial itch. I know a lot of you guys probably know what I'm talking about. There was just this thing nagging that, I wanted to kind of do my own thing. At the time I was going back to school, I was doing an MBA program, and I bought this little moonshine still. And, whenever the first drip came out of the parrot, I had absolutely fallen in love with the whole process. And, during that MBA program, kind of put together this idea of a farm-based distillery, because, the thought was to try to put as much value inside the bottle for the consumer as possible, and not just be another brand. What actually made our brand difference. So we decided to kind of take this, if you want to call it this, a Napa Valley approach to whiskey, and put a taste of our region, or the terroir, inside the bottle. And that's kind of been the driving force behind everything that we've done, and started the thing on like a bootstrap budget, and we've just tried to grow it responsibly and as much as we could. And Steve, it's funny you mentioned it was just Laura and I there. We'd sit there at night and play cards, waiting for a car to come up the driveway and hopefully sell a bottle of booze to. I'm proud to say to this day, Laura's still we're the two owners of the business. So it's fun to go into work every day. We get to work with some awesome people, as Evan well knows. Yeah, we just enjoy what we're doing and take it day by day.
Okay. So again, I think most of our audience, probably just about everybody on here, knows your story. They know so much about you, whether they've come to visit you or heard you on their shows, or you certainly spent enough time just as a co-host on the Bourbon Daily and stuff like that. So they know you pretty well. But you're facing the future of your business right now because you've acquired another property. And tell us a little bit about what that's going to be like. So let's talk for a moment about the future, because that is not as established with the group here. So tell us about what you have going on coming up.
There is a lot going on, and there's even more coming and more changing by the week, it seems like. So the big thing is, we've got this tiny tasting room, and we've always wanted to be able to really allow people to immerse themselves in the experience of being at a distillery and creating these really unique experiences for people that they may not get to enjoy really outside of Kentucky, or wherever they may be. But this project, Steve, it's been going on for a long time. God, 2019, early 2019, I think is when we started it. But anyway, we've recently acquired a farm that is right on Route 3, which is about 4 minutes from us, but we're on that farm fronts a road that's 20,000 cars a day instead of our little tiny side back road along the farm, which is like 12 cars a day. So a lot more visible, but on there, we're building what we're calling the Visitor Experience Center. So it's a big venue. It's 27,000 square feet. You walk in the front door and it's a full service bar, tasting room, inside like enclosable patio, outdoor patio, very kind of winery-esque. If you want to think about it that way, has amazing views. And then we've got a 350 person event venue behind that we're expecting mostly to be for weddings and those types of things. And then we do have a lower level venue that we're putting in as well. Think much more like speakeasy lounge type feeling, much more intimate, pool tables, big couches, chairs, again, full service bar down there, catering kitchens and all that fun stuff. So the plan is to hopefully bring new people in, introduce them to our brand, and hopefully keep them on site as long as possible and create these super unique experiences. So it definitely creates some challenges and some opportunities as well. Our existing facility will become production only, but tours are such an important piece of what we do, and we feel like it's such an integral part of the business that we'll be running shuttles between the new place and the production facility, doing tours and all that fun stuff. So.
Yeah. And another thing that you've talked about too is, a Kentucky style warehouse, what you might see dotted across the landscape in Kentucky. That's going to be part of the build out to the new place as well.
It is. It was supposed to be part of phase 1 of the build out, but with construction costs doing what they've done over the last handful of months, that's kind of phase 2 now. But yes, we are talking with teams in Kentucky that, that's what they do. They build these rick houses. We're talking to Busick, we're talking to K-Rax, and we're trying to not just build like a Kentucky warehouse where it's like a box of barrels, but we're trying to do some really unique things. What we're really trying to do is, kind of mimic the design of the Deatsville warehouses at the old T.W. Samuels distillery. So.
Oh, very nice. That'll be cool. So tell us a little bit about this whiskey that we're going to be tasting tonight. Again, Justine, this is a personal favorite for mine, and I believe Justine too. That's why she happened to have 2 bottles in her inventory. So it's just one of our all-time favorite whiskeys, not just a favorite of yours, all-time favorite whiskey. So tell us a little bit about what we can expect on the nose here, because I just lifted my glass up, and I haven't had this one in a while, and you forget. It's just crazy on the nose.
Yeah, Justine, I owe you a big favor. So this is one of my favorite whiskeys that we've ever made, and it's part of our production cycle now, for sure. It's not part of our released offerings at this point in time, as we're just letting that inventory age, but it's definitely part of the production. It's people hear rye whiskey, and my brain, at least whenever I hear it, automatically goes to the flavor profile of a 95.5, you know, something more traditional, or you've got your Kentucky style rye with more corn and that type of stuff. The recipe for this rye is completely different. And I think the malted rye and the recipe is really what lends itself to that super interesting nose.
Yeah, I threw out there. I mean, to me, every time you nose it, it's something new with this one. Graham crackers, green apple, says Keith. I said baked goods, apricot, apple, waffles, uh, stout cask, malt, cream, dried fruit. I mean,
So the crazy thing to me is always like, you know, Steve, we are like pretty well everybody knows, I guess we grow all of our own grain, and rye is one of the most challenging ones to do. We had to go source a varietal of rye from Europe to bring in every year. And that's what we grow because it grows a little bit shorter, and it's better for our climate. We plant in the fall and then harvest in early summer, as opposed to like in the north, they plant in the spring and then harvest like late summer, early fall. So we're kind of on this different growing cycle. And one consistent thing across our rye is that you get a pretty heavy dose of fruit, and it's not just that big like spice and pepper bomb that you might expect.
mm-hmm. You almost want to nose it all night long, but then you want to drink it too. Yeah, the green apple. Ed says he's getting that too. Rice spice, pear, apricot, dark fruit. Yeah, there's a lot there. Well, let's try it. Cheers on this one, gang.
Cheers.
Oh man, it's all there. I mean, I'm almost thinking of seagrass, and which is finished in an apricot brandy barrel, and I get enough apricot there but again, this isn't finished. There's nothing about this here. You certainly get the fruity notes. You get the baking aisle notes, whatever those are. There's a ton of spices you can come up with there. You get the rye spice at the end. It's there. That rye is there, and you catch it a little bit. It's not overwhelming, but certainly get that rye spice. It's fantastic.
You know, this is also, and I'm thinking back to like where we were and what we were doing and all that stuff. So we were still entering whiskey. So entry proof on this was 120 proof. Now we're entering at 110 proof, but after drinking this, I think we might lay some of these back down. I think this is the first time I ever put whiskey into a medium plus toast #1 char barrel. And that was based on a conversation with a friend of the network, Weebrink.
Yeah.
All the research he was doing around the different extractives and some of those lower charred barrels.
Yeah. Yeah. He really makes the case for that. His presentation is just one of the best. If you're ever at an event and you see Andrew Weebrink presenting, sign up for that class. It is a game changer because not only is he brilliant, but he can explain it in a way that just makes sense for somebody like me. So, you know, just somebody who's not scientific focused, not highly intelligent, and but can get what he's saying, which is cool. So, yeah, the great thing is you never, if you hang out with Andrew Weebrink, you don't expect that because he's just a normal guy hanging out with him. He's fun to be around, and yeah, just a good guy. All right, Kevin Majors, this is very good. Wow, that's above well above average there. Like a spiced trail mix: chocolate, dried apricot, apple, raisins, rye chips. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that whiskey was 28 months. Yeah, 28 months old.
Okay. So it is one of those things though that is unique to whiskey. So you make this product, you lay it down, and then you've got a million other things going on. You're moving on to your next thing. You're all this, and you don't know that you have what we're tasting right now until it's ready to go, and then you taste it and you're like, holy cow, this is special. But it's not like you can be like, okay, we'll lay some more of this down and we'll have it next week. No, you got to wait. This is 2 years. You got to wait at least 2 more years. So where are we at on that now? It seems like it's been a while. Are we getting closer to getting some more of this out or not?
Yeah, so sadly, that is exactly the case.
Right.
This is at that point in time where we were playing around with mash bills and we didn't know what we wanted. We had trialed, several different rye recipes. This was the second one we did, but we didn't realize until we were about 2 years into it that this is going to continue developing the way we want it to.
Right.
So those barrels, the first lot of production after this just crossed the 2-year mark.
Okay, so we're getting close. We're getting close now, right?
They are, yeah. I think I'm probably going to let them get through next summer still.
Okay.
We've been playing around a lot with just this flavor profile. So like one thing we did, Justine has a little sneak peek of this. We took one of those ryes that was just at 2 years old, and we tossed it into a Norton wine barrel. And actually, Taylor, our new distiller, she chose the finishing barrel that we put this into. So it's a Norton wine barrel from a local winery here, Seguin Moreau barrel. So super high end barrel, has French oak heads on it, and the flavor system's paired really, really well together. So we've got some cool finishing situations going on with that, as well as the standard release. And apparently now I'm going to have to do a couple different entry proofs as well. So we're going to have to build a little extra flexibility in there.
All right. So this has been a painful 2+ years and counting now, waiting for this to come back out. Once it does come back out, because now you know how good it is it something that we can expect kind of regularly at this point? Have you been laying down? And I know you have a hole in production, so that may factor into this, but is this something we're going to expect regularly, or is it going to be try what you've got out here and then there'll be 2 more years after that, or what do we got going on here?
That's a great question, and I don't have the answer to that.
Okay.
So we did lay a big chunk of it down, and actually in the next couple of weeks here, we're probably going to be laying down another 50 or 60 barrels of it.
Okay.
For this year's production, but this kind of goes back to the future piece that we were talking about earlier. I think you're going to be seeing our whiskey come to market in a little different manner than we've approached the market in the past. And there's going to be a lot more details about how that's going to look coming forward, or going forward rather. But regardless of how it comes to market, there will always be a spot for this recipe in the portfolio for sure.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. It is definitely a favorite, and I think it definitely needs to be on the reg for sure. I know you used to share early on the secret sauce here, the secret ingredient. What is the secret ingredient here? It's a special sort of rye or something, right? What's the rye that you use in this one?
Yeah, there's 2 different varieties of rye.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, two.
One of those is imported. We have to import the seed before we plant it. There's like this whole ordeal with like a grower's agreement and all the stuff that we have to sign. But then we get one of those varieties malted, and the final mash bill becomes 72% rye, 25 malted rye, 3 malted barley. And you've got the 2 different varieties of rye in there. So it's just it's a super unique recipe that I don't think there's a whole lot of rye being made this way. And I guess one thing I didn't mention is we found this in kind of like this buried manuscript, if you want to call it that, dated 1911. So a true pre-prohibition recipe for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, please stick around, and we'll open it up for questions at the end, and would like to have you part of that. Okay.
For sure.
All right, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Neeley. And again, it's one of those distilleries I think you guys know a lot about. I don't think there's anybody new to the network here or anything like that doesn't know the story. Royce Neely, his distillery has been open, 7 years ago. He had the dream of doing this. He and his father did this after, 10 generations of individuals, selling moonshine. We always say illegally, but there was times in the country when it was legal to make whiskey, as a product of farming. So the early settlers were able to do that, and then they made the laws and chased people into the woods, basically, and that's where the Neelys took off with the illegal operations, and that was the case until there was a short time after I believe Jefferson got rid of the tax. That was a big thing that he ran on. So for a while, they got rid of that, and so that was legal then. But other than that, those 2 times, the Neelys, 11 generations have been delved into making whiskey illegally, and now Royce being that first generation to do so legally, which is kind of cool. I don't want to go too much into his distillery, other than because you guys know so much about it. The cool thing is that he is getting ready to double production. So, what you need with that is, fermenters, more fermenters. He's going to be running a second shift, to officially have 2 shifts now. So he's always been running 1 shift. And so now he's going to have 2. Papal will get things going in the morning. Royce will get it go, be there, afternoon to evening. So they'll kind of split that duty, and not hiring up a bunch of new people or anything like that, doing things how Neely's do it. They'll just split their time and make it work. work. They'll have crossover, of course, in the middle where the two of them are working together like they normally do. So it's a pretty cool thing, and it's been great to watch them grow. I thought I would cover a little bit on how Royce and I got to be such good friends, because just to provide something different for this meeting. And it all came, I was at an event for Steve Beam used to have. He used to have this big thing every year where he'd invite craft distilleries to come to his place. And I was there. It was 2018. I was on a bourbon daily tour, doing going around to different cities, and I had T-shirts. I was selling all that. So I had a table where I was podcasting from and selling T-shirts and that. And Steve Beam came to me and said, "Well, are you going to interview some of the distillers here?" I'm like, "Well, I really can't get away from my table." He's like, "I'll bring them to you." So, I mean, he brought like Paul Tomaszewski. He brought several other people to me as well, but the standout star, the person that I instantly connected with was Royce, because he came on. I knew nothing about Royce, hadn't really heard of Neeley Family Distillery before, and he sits down and starts telling all these stories of moonshining and gunfights and all this stuff. I mean, it's literally captured in that first interview that we ever did. And I was blown away by it. And then I invited him the next week to do a thing on moonshining history. We had a show back then called Bourbon History, and I thought that would play well into that. So we did that. And then I went and visited Royce and went to his place. And, again, much like the first time I went to Adam's place, I mean, his place is so different than it is now. Some people might have a hard time believing that he could ever get from where he's at, at that point to where he's at now. But you could see that the dedication to, sweet mashing and you're so into the barrels and, family yeast and propagating yeast and all that stuff. It's like, you just don't run into this every day. This isn't what, a lot of these small craft distillers are doing. So I knew he was different. And then, going there and see what he was doing, we kind of connected. And then, I played cards, and we used to have this game. I'd be in Kentucky twice a month, and twice a month we'd play cards at Bourbon's Bistro. And I was staying at Bourbon's Bistro at that time, and that's great. But there's parking problems and all that, and you're in the business, alone after hours, and I don't know. It was always a little bit weird, but I that's all I could afford. I didn't have a bankroll where I could do these things. So Royce invited me to on one of these card games to stay at his place. So I stay at Neeley Family Distillery. It was a little bit more out of the way, family-owned business. I didn't have to deal with the other employees, or sometimes they'd have parties in the room where I was staying, and that wouldn't go on till 1 a.m. or something like that. I'd have to just lay low while Bourbon's Bistro was finishing out those parties. So this was great. I was able to have a real bed to sleep in, and Royce, whenever I'd stay there, Royce had his own apartment. We'd end up staying up all night just talking. Talking about whiskey and talking about bourbon and bourbon history and, who we liked in the bourbon industry and who we didn't like and all this kind of cool stuff. And again, just kind of connecting. And then I was interviewing Dick Stoll. I told him, I've got this interview coming up with this guy who used to be the master distiller for Michter's, Dick Stoll. And Royce just begged to be on that interview. And he wasn't part of the bourbon show or anything like that. And I was like, can you be just a fill-in host? He's like, yeah. So he was part of the interview team, even though he wasn't on the show or anything like that, because he wanted to talk to Dick Stoll. And then we get in and we talk to Dick Stoll, this 84-year-old ex-master distiller of the original Michter's. And we just get in there and we have this amazing time. Dick Stoll was able to talk everything about whiskey. And Royce, when the interview ends, Royce just starts peppering him with questions. Like, how do you, propagate the yeast properly? And I'm looking at building a yeast room, and how would you do that? And, get away from just the jugs, and how do you incorporate that? And Dick Stoll, who his wife liked to say couldn't even operate an iPad, knew everything there was to know about running a distillery, even though he hadn't done so for about 30 years. He remembered pH levels, and, anything Royce would ask him, he knew. And Dick Stoll said, "Hey, if you really want to learn about this stuff, come up and see me." And Royce was like, we got to do this. And I'm like, okay, let's go see Dick Stoll. And so this is like on a Tuesday. Royce calls me back later that day and says, "Hey, Friday, we're going to go up and meet Dick Stoll." I'm like, Friday? I'm in St. Louis. You're in Sparta, Kentucky, and we're going to be, go to Pennsylvania. And sure enough, I had to go with them. And so we went up there, and we were in this long road trip or whatever it is up there, 12 hours or something crazy. So we're driving and just talking, and again, just becoming better friends. And then we get up there, and we have this great day with Dick Stoll. The whole thing's recorded. I don't know what we're going to eventually do with that. Royce has used it again and again to help him with his business because he just has asked him questions about how to do things. So, but he says he maybe wants that playing in his yeast room one day, just on a loop or something like that. So we may do something like that. But it was just an amazing day. And then when it all got said and done, we get done, and Dick Stoll says, we're finished up, and Royce and I were supposed to be in town that night because we had that long drive ahead of us. We're going to spend the night and then leave the next morning. And Dick Stoll said, "You guys want to go to dinner?" And we're like, yeah, we're like little kids, because here's this master distiller that was trained by Charles Everett Beam, one of the seven Beam sons. You hear about that in bourbon history, the seven Beam sons. He was one of them, and he's the person that trained Dick Stoll, and he wanted to go out to dinner with us, so we go out to dinner with him, and it's just at this hole in the wall seafood buffet place that he liked to go to because they had all you can eat clams on the buffet. And then we get there and they don't have them that night, and he's yelling at the owner. And so it was just this amazing day. And then we go back to the room, and we have fun, and we drink a little bit, and then we hit the road. And again, we got the other 12-hour drive. And by the end of all that time, 24 hours in the car over the course of 2 days, we're just thick as thieves after that. We're just buddies, and we helped each other with our businesses. I was new with the ABV Network, and he was still relatively new with his company, and we just helped each other along the way. And it's been nice having someone that you can lean on and talk to. So that's how we got to be such good buddies through the years. Really the Dick Stoll thing. And the cool thing about Dick Stoll, to his credit, he would answer Royce's call whenever he called him. And the great thing was, when you're dealing with somebody that you look up to like that, that's a legend, that's advancing in years. Royce would always call him and say, "Mr. Stoll, this is Royce Neely. I'm the guy in sport." He was like, "I know who you are, Royce." He would always say something like that. And, and then he'd ask him questions, and Dick Stoll would answer them. And they just had this very cool relationship. And we were scheduled to go see Dick Stoll in 2020 there's a convention up there in Philadelphia, and Laura Fields does it. We were scheduled to be at that, and it got canceled. And unfortunately, that would have been in June of 2020. And of course, COVID, everything's canceled at that time. And then unfortunately, in August of that year, Mr. Stoll passed away. So we didn't get to see him again. It would have been amazing to do so, but it just wasn't meant to be. But yeah, he drew so much from that meeting, and it really influenced what he does moving ahead. And one of the big things that came out directly out of that, and all his whiskey from that point forward is made without enzymes. So he used enzymes before that, and it makes things easier. But there's always this: if something is made easier, it's also going to take something away in terms of taste or flavor or whatever. And he quit using them, and because Dick Stoll, made the point of, you're trying to do things like your grandfather. He's like, who never used enzymes? And Royce is like, who? Your grandfather never used enzymes. If you want to do that recipe, you got to quit doing that stuff. And Royce was like, well, I don't know. It's the mash is too thick. I don't know how. The enzymes help thin it out. He's like, here's how you thin it out. He laid it all out for him. Here's what you need to do. And Royce has done that and hasn't looked back. So it was pretty cool meeting for sure. So what we're going to be trying tonight from Neely Family Distillery is a special release. It was barreled on what was Papaw's birthday. If you've been up to Neely Family Distillery, Royce's grandfather, Earl Sizemore, is the father of Royce's mother, Michelle, and of course he's there all the time, and he's crabby mostly, and people want to go and talk to him because he's this big over the top figure, and sometimes he wants to talk to you, sometimes he doesn't. You never know what you're going to get with Papaw. That's the great thing. Sometimes he loves when you're there, and wants to sign bottles and all that kind of stuff. But this was done for him, laid down on his birthday, so they which is very cool. They then flagged it, as his birthday barrel, and then they released it as a single barrel thing in their gift shop. We sold some in the ABV barrel shop as well. And it's the first time, it's a rye whiskey, and it's the first time that they ever did it in a 750 milliliter bottle. So that's the first time he's ever made any of his whiskey available. He's always done 375. So a little kind of cool fact there as well. What are you guys getting on the nose on this one? I mean, some of the notes kind of like from Adams, right? I mean, a little bit of that kind of in there. A little bit less fruity. Swedish Wausau crackers, rye pumpernickel, caraway, dried orange peel. Wow. Awesomeness, says Steve. More raw doughness, yeah. Well, sweet with dried apricot, brown sugar, caramel, a bit of graininess, rice spices, oak, fresh rye bread, earthy notes and fruity. Yeah, I agree. The fruitiness, that's a big difference between the one that Adams had as taste. The more fruitiness on Adams. Cardamom, bread dough. Yeah. Yeah. Again, a lot of notes there though. That's a cool thing. Let's give this thing a taste. Let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got. Cheers. Cheers, everybody, and cheers to Papaw on his birthday barrel here. Kind of comes through. People said bread dough on the nose comes through with that. It's spicy. There is a little bit of a fruity component there, but there's also kind of raisins notes to it too. So maybe like a spicy raisin bread, like a rye base, but with raisins in it. So what are you guys getting on the taste on this one? Dough, toasted spices, lots of black tea. Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. And there's Becca and Papaw. Who's holding that up? Oh, that's Melanie and Neil. Yeah. One of my proudest moments in the distillery was when Papaw, aka Earl Sizemore, knew my name, or at least some version of it. He calls me Akley, which is fine. He knows me. He knows who I am at least. So yeah. I'll take Akley over Hey You, which is what he always called me before. Sweet with a syrupy mouthfeel. There's some dryness and oak with char and rice spices, some sweet dried apricot followed by rye bread, some raisin, fig Newton from Mike. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on there for sure. Very good stuff. Solid offering. And again, different than your typical rye, you know. We think so many are going with that Indiana rye, the 95.5, and this is way different from that. So very different taste and excellent stuff. So really good stuff. Enjoyed this one for sure. And yeah, I like what's going on. He did things right here. Cardamom on the palate as well. The second thumper had rye mash, says Ed. So there you go. Sweet thumped rye mash. Nice. All right. We'll now talk to Mr. Mike Root, the owner and distiller of Copper Sky out of Longmont, Colorado. Hey, Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Good. How did you get in this business?
Oh man. Well, I'm sure some of you heard my story because I see some familiar names. We stay in touch on Facebook. I worked for the government for 10 years. I was in the military and then did some private stuff. So, you know, we drink a lot of whiskey when you're working for the government. So I decided to stop buying whiskey and making my own whiskey, which actually isn't true because I have way more of other people's whiskey than I do my own whiskey.
Right.
It was just a fun, you know, I'm a Southern boy, as you can hear my voice. I live in Colorado and that's home now, but I'm a Southerner and I've got some fun Southern stories. Family members we did a Bonnie and Clyde bottle this past year, Clyde Barrows in our family. So we've got some fun stories, but I really wanted to get into our own brand and just, you know, help Colorado get on that whiskey map.
Yeah. There are great things going on in Colorado, right? I mean, I don't know that people realize this because so much of the focus when you're thinking of American whiskey it's Kentucky, and no slam on them. Kentucky is fantastic.
Absolutely.
You know, absolutely world class in terms of the whiskey. You know, my favorite whiskeys in the world come from Kentucky, but that doesn't mean there can't be other places that are doing well. And I think Colorado is one of those hotspots, and that's why I was there this summer. You know, spent a week there filming a movie called Colorado Whiskey that'll be coming out next spring, and there are a lot of people making some really good whiskey there, aren't there?
Right. And I mean, I agree. Like my favorite whiskeys come out of Kentucky too. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
that's American tradition. And that's the inspiration to a lot of our whiskeys out here is, you know, we love the Kentucky stuff, but you know, west of the Mason-Dixon line, it's pretty hard to get the good stuff. So we're like, well, we got to find our own good stuff to make.
Right. What I was so thrilled about and excited about when I went to Colorado was no one has told anybody there that they've invented the column still. Everyone there is pot stills. And it was so exciting to see because you got all these people making this pot still whiskey, which is fantastic. And yeah, it was just cool to see from small craft distillers where you kind of expect them to have a pot still to so some places pumping out a pretty good amount that have pretty good sized distribution, but still committed to using that pot still. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, and I think it's also a nod to like traditions of whiskey. You see a lot of columns in the different variants of the different liquors, but you got to go to Talnu and see the amazing stills there. So a lot of it's just we're trying to cling to some of those traditions, but just change a few little things.
Yeah. So, how did you learn this business? You didn't grow up in the business. It wasn't a family tradition that passed down from generation to generation. Everyone's a distiller, and that happens a lot. But that wasn't your story. So, how do you learn the business? How do you learn how to make whiskey and all those things, and develop recipes and run a still, all that stuff you need to know?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much self-made. I'm also a veteran, spent tons of time overseas. Before I got here to Colorado, I lived in Pakistan for a year doing some fun work for the government, and it's mostly just self-taught. So to me, like I'm trying to be the first generation of the future generations. Like I started Copper Scott by myself, had no investors. I literally took my military pension, was like, hey, I want to start this brand. So the fun thing is 10 generations down the line, hopefully they're saying, Grandpa Mike is the one that did this. So it's different because Colorado doesn't have that. I mean, we've only got a handful of like 2 or 3 distilleries that have reached the 10-year-old mark. So it's a lot of us are really trying to start that generational tradition. For me, it was reading a lot of books, watching a lot of videos, making a lot of prison whiskey and just figuring things out and what I liked. The good thing is we've got the amazing history and of Kentucky. Like I love weeded whiskey and weeders, and being from the South, I tend to like things that are a lot sweeter. So that's kind of where my palate took me.
Right.
And so now it's really just trying to, make a Colorado version of that because I think it's already perfected. Kentucky has perfected it, and so now Colorado, I think, is just trying to make, a Colorado version of things. It's not trying to take over.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to, copy what anybody else is doing. You just, you do your own thing. And again, I don't think you have to beat anybody else up or tear anybody else down to say that you're doing good things out in Colorado. Hey, it can be great in Kentucky, it can be great in Colorado. And it doesn't have to necessarily, everybody's doing the same thing. And Colorado seems to, forging its own path, which I think is cool.
Yeah, and I think that's a good, amazing thing about this industry is I've got more friends and mentors probably in Kentucky and Indiana than I do in Colorado, and I'm the vice president of the guild out here. I love meeting people, and that networking is a fun part. I'll text Gene over at Cat's Eye and be like, hey, I got a question, or whomever in Kentucky, and we all take care of each other because we understand we're in a very niche industry where we can share consumers. We don't have to take a customer from another person. That customer can have 1,000 bottles of whiskey at their house, and we're all still friends.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you're friends with Richard from Art of the Spirits. So he always talks, very highly of you and stuff like that. So who else are some of your friends in the industry?
Oh, I don't like to name drop. We're all just good buddies. We all take good times where I've needed stuff, especially this past year. We're coming up on barrel shortages, there's grain shortage, there's all kind of shortages as the trigger word of the past 2 years. And it's just been good to have friends that I can text and be like, hey, I need, some barrels or some grain, or heck, I might even need some whiskey just to fill a stopgap. And it's never, new phone, who's this? It's always, hey, I got it on the way to you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very nice thing to have, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your business. Tell us about, do you have, do you do tours and stuff like that at your place? And if so, tell us what the visitor experience is like.
Yes, we actually this past weekend had our grand opening and ribbon cutting for our new facility.
Okay.
We moved just around the corner, so we're kind of in the heart of Longmont now, this new district they're creating. And so from the ground up, we built this new facility that's got our production, 2 warehouses, and then 2 bars. So it's got the typical retail experience. You come in, the tasting room, there's high chairs and retail and merchandise and bottles and music and everything. And then there's a private bar in the back. That's a speakeasy. So there's only one way in. You got to be let in with an employee who has a key fob. It's like a hidden barn door. You think you're going outside. And that's what leads you to, the leather furniture, the leather chairs. It's old jazz music. There's a cigar lounge. It's a much different experience. And we built that bar mostly for the locals. And then we have like a member program. But we built that bar because one of the biggest things we heard was when we were, scaling up is, oh, you're going to forget about the people who were here since day one and sitting in your little, garage bar. And so we wanted to make something that reminded them of just being at home on the couch, that we weren't forgetting them even just because we're scaling up. So that's really like a lounge. It's not really, there is no retail, there is no upselling. They know our story. We're just serving them drinks and they're having a good time.
Yeah. Mike, where do you think you can go with this thing? And what's the end game? I mean, because there's different takes on this. You can try, not that you can get there even in one generation, but the goal is to be the biggest and the best, and they want to be the next Jim Beam. Others, it's like, I just want to make a good living and carve out something for myself and my family and something that I can pass along to future generations. And others are like, I'd like to get a regional approach. I want to dominate X amount of states, but what's your plan?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. It's definitely something, this is one of the, so I own a bunch of other, I say a bunch, I own 4 other companies, but Copper Sky is my baby. It's the only one I own by myself that I want to give to my daughter or whomever.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only one that I spend most of my time up here in the office making sure that, it lasts. But it's also something that like we want to be a Colorado brand, a household name. We're already in 5 states now. We're getting ready to launch in 31 states at the beginning of next year. But it's never something that we're like, oh, we want to be Jim or Jack or, fill in the blank, because those guys have been doing it for generations. And they're also serving, I think, a little bit different of a customer base. Like when you buy a bottle of Copper Sky, it's not consistent over 1 million bottles that you can just mix anything. Because we're still quote unquote craft, every batch is a little bit different. And then we also, because we're much smaller, we have the ability to do the different experiments or the test batches, where I'm not putting 1 million bottles out a year. So I can do a 500 bottle run of something crazy, which is one of the things we're drinking tonight. It was only, 185 bottles that we did. And it was just something fun for our friends who like to call themselves taters. And so we're like, all right, we'll give you something to go chase. So it's the combination of, I want my family to continue this. And also we want to be a, household name, especially here in Colorado.
Right. The game plan, to get to this point, you start out, you're sourcing, and then you start laying stuff down yourself too. And long term, what's the game plan? Is it always going to be a combination of sourcing and distilling, or is it all going to be distilling? What are you going to be doing down the road?
Yeah, I think that's what makes us unique here in Colorado, because a lot of people kind of find a lane and stick to it. Our lane was hybrid from day one, and I want to always be hybrid. I can't say what my kids or their generations are going to do. But while I'm in the reins, it's going to be hybrid, meaning we've always sourced and distilled, and it's just 2 different pages in the portfolio. So we don't blend our distillate with source distillate. It's basically 2 different offerings that we do. And so as long as I'm here, it's always going to be that. And we get to have fun. We just did a charity bottle. It was a 26-year-old Canadian whiskey that we just randomly got a couple barrels of. And so the one-off stuff like that, we like to do charity bottles for, because it's not really like a Copper Sky thing. It has our name on it because it's, it'll say distilled wherever, but bottled at Copper Sky. But we can have a lot of fun and offer that. And so when we're doing charity stuff, raising funds, it's something one-off that you can get. But yeah, we got brand new stills and stuff in here. So we'll keep doing both, and they'll stay separate of themselves. But I think it's just fun because it gives us the chance to play with stuff, but not really mess with our distillate and our mash bills, but still do some fun stuff with some other whiskey.
Yeah, very nice. Well, tell us a little bit about this whiskey. You previewed a little bit. You talked a little bit about, this is a special offering you did for some of your friends and stuff like that. So what do we need to know about this whiskey before we even get into nosing and tasting?
Yeah, so this is a good example of kind of that. We source some left behind whiskey barrels. This is a 17-and-a-half-year-old light whiskey that came from MGP, but they got it from Seagram's. And this one was actually out of an old Four Roses barrel, because of course back in the day there was a lot more exchange of goods. Seagram's would get MG or Jim Beam and Four Roses and all these crazy different barrels to finish their light whiskeys in. So we snatched up some of those that were left a long time ago. So this is a 17-and-a-half-year-old, and we finished this for 6 months in a Blanton's barrel, because everybody in Colorado is always going around, hey, y'all got any Blantons? Because you can't find it out here. I got 2 used Blanton's barrels, and I was like,
nice.
We're gonna have some fun. And we put this 17-year-old light whiskey in a Blanton's barrel, and we only release it at the distillery because it's got a fun. I don't have any bottles in here. I don't know if you still got it, but it's got a fun little sticker on the back that's got Elmer Fudd and he's going hunting, and it says, y'all got any Blantons on there?
All right. Justine just just got up, I'm sure, to go grab that.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it all gets sent to her, but so we'll have her, as soon as she gets back, we'll have her share what that sticker looks like. That'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, so
So.
stuff like that we like to have fun with, just to kind of, still a good offering. To me, it's an amazing whiskey. The light whiskey in and of itself, it just carries a lot of history from how it's kind of, progressed from distillery to distillery. There she goes up in the corner.
Justine, if you don't mind talking a little bit, I know you're not big into talking, but most people have like the speaker view and you can't hear other than the person that's talking. So if you don't mind, talk a little bit.
So this is, oops, the bottle.
There he is. Tater season.
Am I going the opposite way here? Here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that's great. I love it, man. You got everything in there. You got the Blantons, you got the tater sticker. It's pretty high proof. The people that chase the high proof, the people that chase the age statement, it's all there, right?
Yeah, and I usually like to see people take their first sip before we tell them what proof it is, just because we like 99.9% of the time, no one's even within 15 points of being close.
Right. Yeah. All right. What let's talk a little bit about on the nose first, folks. Tim's doing some material there, saying the ABV Barrel Shop is the location for E.H. Taylor and Blanton's Gold. Of course, he's the one who's calling about that. He forgets that we have caller ID, and we see it's Tim's number, and he's calling, asking where's our Blantons and stuff like that. What are you guys getting on the nose on this one? Cherry, yeah. Cherry cobbler. Anything else?
It's always
Gang?
fun to see people in their different, I always say, life experiences when they nose and taste things, because like I was never a big cherry fan growing up.
Mm-hmm.
The two different options for the cough syrup when we were kids was either cherry or grape. So I hate those flavors. I can never get them. Like someone's like, "Oh, that tastes like cherry," and I'm like, I think my mind has put up this wall. I got PTSD with cherry or something.
Right. Don't like cherry or grape, huh? Buttery biscuits with some honey drizzle, pure sweetness on the nose. Sharp cherry. Is there cheddar? It's like cheddar and sharp cheddar. This is sharp cherry. Okay, thanks, Evan. Definitely get the cherry, but got a sensation thing. My mouth started to water. Nice. Honey, says Justine. Carrie said honeysuckle. Kevin Majors, he just loves it. All right, let's try it. Let's see what we got here. Caramel, honey, and cherry. All right, let's try it. See what we got on the taste. Cheers, gang. Last one of the night. Cheers. Oh, wowzers, that is good. Woohoo.
One of the big things I get on this, and I get sideways looks when I say it, but again, I'm a Southerner. I get buttered green beans.
Buttered green beans.
Yeah, buttered green beans, like sauteed in the pan.
Yeah. Well, and Stump's right on. You wouldn't guess this is over 138 proof. I mean, there's no way. I mean, dessert in a glass. Yeah. Yeah, this is fantastic. We need to carry a couple of cases of this at the ABV Barrel Shop. That's what we do. We're different. I know it's only at the gift shop, but we play by different rules. So we'll talk about that.
That happened. I got a couple cases hidden here.
All right, man. We'll work on that. That'll be great. Cherry cream savor, tater worthy for sure. Cherry candies and butter sauce.
I like that.
And bit of honey on. Yeah, there's the honey is just sticks with you. It finishes honey finish. Man, dude, this is incredible.
Yeah, I really love these high proof stuff because, especially like if you've got the palate for it, it'll hit you on so many different sensory levels that you're not, even your mouth's not quite used to. And so it awakens these memories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Cherry candy. So almost everybody's saying cherry in there. Sweet, hot caramel, honey oak, a tang to it. Yeah, there's definitely a tang there. Mike, the guy who doesn't like cherry, is this okay? This is the cherry that you like, I assume, right?
Hey, it's whatever you say it is. To me, like drinking whiskey and bourbons is a sensory experience.
Mhm.
That's right. Yeah, it's what you what does it ignite in you? Not what I tell you it ignites.
Okay. Tony says the Butterscotch Dilly Bar, which I think has been discontinued. That's old school there, man. And Tony's not even that old. But yeah, the Butterscotch Dilly Bar was a treat, man.
Definitely butter. This is a butter. A lot of people tell us when they try it out,
Butterscotch.
it's a butterscotch bomb.
All right. All right. I thought of this. I'm going to share it on this event, and I'll leave it to one of you guys. It's my gift to anyone on here who's entrepreneurial. Everything's salted caramel. Why not salted butterscotch? Why not is there a candidate that's salted butterscotch? It's not out there. It doesn't. This is my idea, and I'm giving it to you now. You know, throw me a bone. A little taste of whatever you get out of that would be nice. But yeah, I put it out there for the world now. Yeah, it keeps bouncing up and down on the back of the palate. Yeah, good stuff, buddy. Yeah, butterscotch, dipped vanilla. Yep, very good. Well, Mike, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it, and thanks for bringing us some awesome whiskey here, brother. Really good stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, what we want to do now is we would like to open this up for questions. You guys can open up your mics. We got 15 minutes here. You're going to ask either any or all of our distillers if you have a question. So feel free. Ask away.
I've been putting really back that Casey this weekend. I don't know what the hell.
I'm going to put Mike on mute there. He's on a phone call or something. And it's getting bad. Things are all fucked up. So yeah, we're not allowed to say that on this show. It's family friendly.
Right. Edit. We gotta mute that F-bomb Steve just dropped.
Yeah, and Mike's too. So both of them. I was just parroting, so I'm the victim. All right, questions. Does anyone have questions?
I fucking like them all.
Oh. And now we're going down that route.
And we are now R-rated. That's 3.
We're more than 5 minutes in, so we're good.
Okay.
I only heard Mr. Bill say I really like it.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's a new level of like for Mr. Bill, actually.
Yeah.
I think he's leveled up.
It's reached new levels. Okay.
Reached new levels. Yeah.
All right. What else? What else? Does anybody have a question?
Ryan, go ahead.
Okay.
For him, buddy. Yep.
All right. Well, I wasn't sure. I'm so used to being work formal on these things.
Oh, the hand up. I didn't even acknowledge that.
Well, that's your back, Steve.
For Andy at Leatherwood, for the brandy, have you experimented with anything that's more cast strength or higher proof? I've really had some unique brandies over the years. Some of them courtesy of Sally and Brad on this call that have really impressed me, and I was just curious if you got any in the works or put any out yet.
I haven't. I think we're going to do that with the next barrel, though. You guys aren't the first ones who said they would like to taste it barrel strength. So, yeah, but do another barrel with it.
I also want to share with you guys that this was the first brandy that Andy had ever tried, and I thought it was a big flex that was he made the first brandy that he ever tried before. So
yeah, made it great. Yeah, for sure.
Hey, Andy, I did not learn the hydrogen peroxide trick until my second batch of brandy that we ran for someone. Yeah, it filled the distillery with mustard gas, and it was not very cool.
I got lucky. Somebody mentioned it to me because otherwise I would have done the same.
It was bad.
Andy, were you running around gas?
Yeah. I still got my old pro mask, so I'd have been all right.
You'd have been okay. Not anybody else, but you'd have been fine.
Everybody else is screwed.
Yeah. What shipping options? So Jason Wickel asked that. He knows what's going on with Neeley. He's a frequent customer of theirs. What about our other three? Adam, you don't have any shipping options at this point, do you?
Not at the moment. We had online sales via our website. We were going libdib to California and then shipping out, but ran into basically FedEx breaking every single package that went out the door. So hence why we have this whiskey tonight. But that we're hoping that picks back up probably late November.
Okay, maybe coming back. All right, yep. So there you go. Mike from Copper Sky, do you have any shipping options?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We use libdib. We're about to launch next week in 31 states via Speakeasy Co. So it'll be able to go direct to your door. We'll drop the map on there, but it's mostly the big states. But for now, we're in California, Colorado, Texas, New York, and Florida.
Okay. Okay. We also signed an agreement at the ABV Barrel Shop where our picks are going to be available online as well with the MASH network. So it's a startup that is doing this stuff, and yeah, really excited about that. We're in early with them, and so yeah, you'll be if we do barrel picks with the distilleries on here, we'll make some of it available that we're shipped nationwide. Andy, how about you? What are you doing with? I know you were doing online. Is that still the case or not?
We are still online. We are with Speakeasy also. In fact, Copper Sky, we might want to get on a phone call sometime soon. We could talk about them. Not a bad company. Just there's some things you need to keep an eye on.
Okay. Okay. Keep an eye on some things. All right. What else you guys want to know?
I have a general question. So is the only way most of the distillers end up making brandy is when a local winery says, I have, because I know the Neeley's made some brandy, and it was because the local winery had a bunch of totes of wine they weren't going to use. So, or grapes, maybe, I forget. Does anyone intentionally make brandy?
I think there are some companies that do, but for smaller distilleries, it's a whole nother animal. You know, fermenting wine is a 30 to 60 day process versus, you know, a 6 to 7 day process for bourbon. And it takes a lot of attention, a lot more sterilization. So I think a lot of distilleries don't really want to deal with it.
Yeah. It's probably an offshoot, the ones that you see with us, because they're whiskey focused, and you know anything that they're doing with brandy is because of something like that. Somebody's come to them and said, "Hey, I got this. Do you want to do something with it?" And yeah, but there certainly are just distilleries that focus just on brandy. I know there's some that just that's all they do. There's at least a couple in Missouri that are just brandy distilleries.
Okay.
So interesting. What else you guys want to know?
Mike Root, how long did you have that 17.5 year light whiskey?
I bought them when they were 13.
Okay. And it aged the rest of the time in Colorado?
Yep.
Okay.
That's hanging on to it for a while, man.
It's hard. I have to put red tape all over them so the guys don't taste them all the time. You start putting like explosive tape and stuff all over. So
right. Yeah. I could see that. Yeah. That's the thing for sure. What else? Anybody have any other questions before we wrap this one up?
How much volume did that lose, the light whiskey in Colorado for 5 more years? Seems like.
Well, so after they get past about year 3, 4, it doesn't lose as much out here because we're like high desert. So it's not super humid and it doesn't get extremely hot. Our first couple years, we'll lose 5 to 7% more than maybe the South, which is why a lot of people around here go into climate control. We don't do climate control. We do air circulated. So whatever the temperature is, it is, but we circulate the air to try to give it some sort of ambient temperature. But it did, I mean, that barrel yielded, I think it was 183 or so bottles.
That's pretty solid.
For
17 and a half years old.
Yeah.
I mean, geez.
I've had some of those barrels that have only yielded like 125. So I think that was just kind of hey, we got lucky with that barrel.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's pretty good.
Man. Yeah.
Mike, what was the entry proof that they put that in at?
I think that one was 160, if I remember correctly.
160.
Any paperwork near me. I think it's 160.
160. Okay. Oh.
Barely legal, right?
All good for light whiskey.
Yeah, light whiskey is
The light whiskey, yeah.
Gotcha.
totally different.
And then
animal.
it sat in that Four Roses barrel its whole life. So I mean, we know Four Roses put stuff out 4 to 6 years old. So it was like 20-something-year-old barrel.
Wow.
Yeah, very cool. Anything else you guys want to know?
I got a question for you, Steve.
Sure.
How much time passed between the time that you've met Royce at the event that you guys went to see Dick Stoll?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was It was just about a year. Yeah. So we met in the spring of 2018, and we went and saw Dick Stoll in 2019. So it was just about a year that we had known each other, and playing cards, and I started staying at his place, his distillery and things like that, and yeah, then that comes up, and then we take our road trip. So yeah.
Cool.
Yep. Anything else?
Adam, important question. Why does the bog next to your distillery smell so bad?
It doesn't smell bad anymore, Evan. We fixed it.
You fixed it?
We fixed it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was atrocious. It was a pH thing.
Right. Was Royce? So okay, the question: who's a better road trip partner, Royce or Mr. Bill? So I've taken long road trips. I went all the way up to Pennsylvania with Royce, and then I went out to Colorado with Mr. Bill. And I'll say this: they're both easy travelers. They're low maintenance. What gives Royce the advantage, though, is Bill is very gassy in a car, and when he's driving, he locks the windows like your dad used to when you were a kid. Bill, you hear the window lock, and you can't roll down the windows, and then Bill starts. First of all, he raises up. And then the window locks, and then he starts laughing. Then the shoulders start shaking because he's laughing to himself. He thinks he's so funny. So yeah, the Mr. Bill lean. Well, yeah, that's a thing. So yeah, and it's nonstop. I mean, Mr. Bill.
Donna said I do the same thing to her.
Oh yeah, poor Donna. She's a saint dealing with Mr. Bill. Yeah,
I agree. She is
but both fun to travel with. Gas aside, I mean, if you ever go on a road trip with Mr. Bill, a very bland diet, I think, is good. Just like rice cakes and that kind of stuff, and I think you'd be okay. Yeah. All right. Anything else, gang?
On that note.
On that note, let's hear a round of applause for our distillers. Let's hear for Andy, for Adam, and for Mike Root for bringing a great session to us, bringing us some awesome products today. We had a brandy and 3 whiskeys. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Really appreciate that. So on that note, we'll turn off the recorder. We'll say goodbye to our at-home audience. I'll stick around. We don't force our distillers to stick around, but they can if they want. That's certainly okay, because we just like to chat and talk a little whiskey and those type of things. But we always up front say, hey, we need 90 minutes of your time, and we like to stick to that. So on that note, we'll turn off the recorder, say goodbye, and take care, everybody. Bye.